Meet Marcelino, a 30-year-old ex-boxing champion who now delivers water for a living. His life used to be exciting, but now it's dull and complicated. He's even taken a job as a parking lot attendant at night. His new job is in the same spot where his older coworker used to work. One rainy night, he's inside the tiny pay booth, watching TV. Suddenly, a woman enters the booth, thinking she knows Marcelino, but he has no idea who she is. Then he realizes she's blind, and she mistook him for someone else. Marcelino tells her about the retired man who used to be there, and she's sad to hear he's gone. With the rain pouring outside, she has to stand in the cold. So, Marcelino invites her to stay in the booth with him, and they watch TV together. Even though she can't see the screen, she enjoys the show by listening. Marcelino sits beside her, admiring her. She gives him food and asks him to take care of a night jasmine plant in the booth. This unusual encounter brings a spark of joy to Marcelino's otherwise boring life. After returning home, he enjoys the food the blind girl gave him and shares some with his pet turtle. He's determined to make positive changes in his life. On the other hand, the blind girl works as a customer service representative, answering phone calls from sometimes rude clients. Her job is tough, but it's the only work she can do, so she does her best to handle it. Her boss, however, behaves strangely and seems to have an unhealthy interest in her. Meanwhile, Marcelino decides to visit his old gym. His trainer is thrilled to see him, but the gym owner isn't forgiving. Marcelino disappeared after winning the title, causing a significant loss for the gym owner who had supported him. Marcelino's visit takes an unexpected turn when he encounters an old rival who challenges him to a fight. However, Marcelino's passion for boxing doesn't seem to have returned. The gym owner gets angry and kicks him out. Despite these challenges, the blind girl returns to the parking booth to watch TV with Marcelino. She becomes curious about the shows and frequently asks him questions. Over time, Marcelino develops feelings for her. When it's time to leave, he thanks her for the food with a box of peaches. It's only then that he learns her name is Yunga. Yunga's life as a blind person is filled with daily challenges, and she lives on her own, which makes her situation even more difficult. The next evening, Marcelino eagerly waits for Yunga to arrive. They enjoy watching their favorite show together, and this time, they grow closer as Yunga is curious about Marcelino's face. After their show, Yunga heads home as usual, but this time, a reckless driver nearly hits her. Marcelino rushes to her aid and takes her to the nearest hospital when he sees she's injured. He carries her up many flights of stairs to her home, realizing the challenges she faces daily. When they reach her place, Marcelino helps clear a clogged drainage, blocked by Yunga's kittens. Grateful for his assistance, she gives him 2 concert tickets as a gift, and since Marcelino doesn't have many friends, they decide to go together. Both Marcelino and Yunga are excited about the concert. They have a wonderful time on their date and enjoy a meal together afterward. Yunga shares that she used to lead a normal life until a traumatic event led to her blindness and the loss of her parents. When she asks about Marcelino's background, he becomes anxious and accidentally teases her about spilling food on her clothes, ruining the mood. As a result, Yunga decides to end the date. Marcelino walks her back home and gathers the courage to share his history. He reveals his troubled past as a boxer and the problems he faced. Despite his embarrassment, he is determined to make a positive change in his life. The next day, Yunga's manager calls her into his office at work and gives her a gift, but he also makes her uncomfortable with advances. She politely exits his office and goes home after work, skipping their usual activities with Marcelino. This leaves Marcelino feeling sad as he wanted to make up for the previous night's mistake. After thinking it over, he decides to talk to his former coach and the gym owner. Marcelino, initially hesitant, gathers the courage to confess that he was imprisoned for 4 years and 3 months after winning the boxing title. He explains that he became a debt collector who used violence on loan defaulters. One night, the police were called to his place due to a violent incident involving a severely injured person. The situation escalated when the injured person set a fire and ran out of the window while Marcelino is dealing with the police, causing a car accident. Marcelino's life took a turn for the worse, and he was arrested. The injured person survived and is now being cared for at a Catholic medical facility. Marcelino visits him regularly in an attempt to make amends for his past actions, and they reconcile. A nurse at the facility gives Marcelino a keepsake meant for a lover, but since he doesn't have a girlfriend, he thinks of one person to give it to. One night, Yunga walks home in the dark, and she's startled when she thinks someone is following her. To her surprise, it's her intoxicated manager, carrying a bottle of wine, trying to enter her home. Yunga, desperate to keep her job due to her health condition, tries to be polite, but the situation gets worse. She asks him to leave, but the persistent manager becomes aggressive and tries to force her. Just in the nick of time, Marcelino arrives and confronts the menacing boss. He takes action to protect Yunga as she screams in fear. After the incident, Marcelino tries to console Yunga, who's worried about losing her job, which she needs to survive. Marcelino promises to take care of her, but she initially rejects his help, thinking it might complicate her life. Marcelino walks away, feeling helpless. Despite the tension, Marcelino can't seem to stay away from Yunga. He discreetly follows her over the next few days to make sure she's safe. One evening, Yunga, having regained her composure, unexpectedly approaches Marcelino and invites him to join her on a short vacation for the weekend. Marcelino readily agrees, and their journey begins. On the day of their trip, Marcelino surprises Yunga by bringing an adorable small dog he adopted to keep her company. The three of them set off on an outdoor adventure, spending quality time by the river, talking about various topics, and collecting 2 pebbles each as keepsakes to remember the day. These pebbles serve as constant reminders of each other, marking the beginning of a beautiful relationship. Marcelino, now fueled by purpose, returns to the gym to prepare for his upcoming mixed martial arts competition. He excels in most of his fights and gains significant success. Meanwhile, he makes improvements to their home to create a cozier living space for Yunga. Their relationship thrives as they always have each other's backs. As time goes by, Yunga takes Marcelino to a memorial place dedicated to her late parents. She shares the tragic story of how a car accident not only took her sight but also claimed the lives of her parents. It's at this moment that Marcelino learns he was imprisoned for the same incident, causing Yunga's blindness and her parents' deaths. This revelation leaves him in disbelief, but he still can't find the courage to discuss it with Yunga. Unfortunately, Yunga's vision deteriorates further, and her doctor predicts total blindness soon. She'll need a transplant, but finding a suitable donor is a challenge. The doctor suggests that Marcelino buy an eye instead, despite the high cost. With limited funds, Marcelino turns to an old adversary who connects him with a dubious boss, leading to his registration for illegal fights in Thailand. He receives an initial payment to cover the transplant cost, but he must participate in several risky matches quickly. Marcelino keeps his dangerous job a secret from Yunga, assuring her he has savings to pay for the procedure. Initially hesitant, she finally agrees, motivated by the idea of seeing their future children. Marcelino accompanies her to the hospital and stays until the surgery begins. Afterward, he secretly departs for Thailand without her knowledge. In Thailand, Marcelino discovers that the fight takes place inside a bloody cage until one fighter is knocked out. The event is broadcast to an underground world of illegal gambling, attracting wealthy spectators who watch the fight live. Marcelino fights fiercely but initially struggles. However, he eventually emerges victorious. To his dismay, he learns that his longtime adversary had bet against him. The prize for winning the match is a valuable diamond, which Marcelino is tasked with smuggling back to Korea. But just as he's about to leave Thailand, his old adversary and his henchmen confront him, attempting to steal the diamond and stabbing Marcelino in the process. Back in Korea, Yunga has successfully recovered from her surgery, regaining her sight. However, Marcelino is nowhere to be found, no matter how long she waits. She's also required to leave her current residence. Just in the nick of time, the Catholic hospital sends a package addressed to Marcelino, which Yunga receives. She travels to the hospital, where she encounters the broken man and the nuns who recognize her as Marcelino's girlfriend. After hearing the story of Marcelino's accident, Yunga pieces together what truly happened. Though it takes time, she eventually comes to terms with the situation. Life goes on, and Yunga becomes a sculptor, working in her workshop. She attempts to recreate Marcelino's face in her sculptures but struggles because she's never seen his face. Her life remains relatively unchanged, and she volunteers at a local medical facility. Surprisingly, Marcelino becomes one of the patients at the facility. Yunga provides him with a massage, unaware of his identity. Marcelino, wanting to keep his distance from her, remains silent not to reveal himself, as he doesn't want to burden anyone due to his injuries. Upon Marcelino's discharge from the hospital, he visits Yunga's shop and retrieves his beloved turtle, placing it in a new vase with a night jasmine plant. Outside the store, his dog recognizes him and rushes to greet him. As Yunga leaves the shop, she realizes the man she cared for in the hospital is Marcelino, apologizing to him. When she returns to the shop, she finds that her pet turtle has vanished, and the dog continues to howl. After questioning a store worker, she concludes that it's Marcelino, and she rushes outside to find him, but her efforts prove unsuccessful. After some contemplation, Yunga revisits the place where they had their memorable trip. There, like something out of a fairy tale, destiny brings them face to face once more. The story culminates in their reunion, and they find themselves back together, just as it was meant to be. And with that, the story comes to a conclusion with them living happily ever after. Love is the only thing that gives life its true significance. A partnership that is destined to be together runs deep and will always find its way, even if it does so in an unpleasant fashion.